Hey everybody, welcome back to Men Need to Be Heard. It's Dan, and I got a very special guest today, and I know I say that every single week. This is someone that I kind of started talking to not too long ago. It hasn't been long, but I love her content. She's over on TikTok, and I wanted to have her on because she has been doing an experiment that I just found utterly fascinating, and I wanted to have her on to talk about it. But before we get to that point, let me bring her on. Let me introduce everybody to Allie. Say hi, Allie.
Hi guys, it's Anonymous Allie 198 from TikTok, and I'm here to share my experiences with you guys.
So, Allie, why don't we start out? Tell us a little bit about yourself, whatever you want to share.
Okay, well, it's a long story, but it follow me here. It's all going somewhere. So I I am an estranged adult child of two parents, a mom and a dad. My mother is abusive, and my dad is an alcoholic. And the things that happened to me in childhood shaped who I became. And I realized when I was on my second marriage that a lot of the problems that I had were from my parents and the way that I was brought up, and I was forced into therapy. Well, I really had an epiphany when I was in my second marriage, which I'm in right now. We've been married over 12 years, and he is divorced, and he has two children with her. And when I saw the things that happened to him, it really opened my eyes. In my first divorce, everything was so amicable. We were married for 8.5 years. We're still all good. Everything's fine. And I found it really bizarre when we went to family court. We had to use lawyers because he had a business. So it wasn't something that we could handle or were equipped to handle on our own. So we just did that with custody too. And when I got to court with my attorney, we sat down and we were mediating, and they told me, okay, Dad, you're going to get every other weekend and a random Wednesday here and there, and about $1,200 in child support to the mother. And they imputed my income because I was a stay-at-home mom at that point, even though I have college education. And I went, wait. My ex-husband's going to end up bankrupt if we do this. And he's never going to see his child. He owns a business. I can't put when he's able to see his child onto a court order. There's just no way to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just when he can. And the lawyer and the mediator were like, are you sure? Are you being, manipulated? Why would you want to do that? And I'm like, what do you mean? I can't bankrupt him. But where's my son going to go visit him? A box on the side of the road? He's going to lose the house. So we sat down together and we just did a liberal shared parenting agreement. We sat down together and we wrote down everything that we spent for our child for a month. And at the time, he was only 2. And we split that number in half. He pays for half, and I put up half. And it's a pretty reasonably low number. And we've stuck by that. We've been divorced, like 14 years, 15 years. And our son, I noticed these striking differences between my son, who is parented equally. He can call his dad whenever. It's got nothing to do with me. His dad isn't stressed about going bankrupt, and my stepchildren who were alienated, who their dad was bankrupted. He used to work for his ex-wife's company, and they tried to make it so that he couldn't get a job. And she is actually from a very wealthy and powerful family overseas, and they're government officials. And so they leveraged their money to bankrupt him. She demanded the house in the divorce just to let it foreclose because she doesn't need credit, just to bankrupt him so they could say, see, you can't take care of the kids. And I have watched him go on this journey of just unbelievable pain. And I've watched the differences of our kids. They're very close in age. Ours, mine is 16, his are 15 and 18 right now. They all had birthdays a couple months ago. The differences in the emotional health and well-being of the kids are just astounding. My son is very well adjusted. He's very friendly. He's very happy. He does very well in school. He's just a very well-rounded, good kid, and he's not afraid of things. He's just so emotionally healthy. Whereas my stepkids are very shut down. They're very timid. They're very scared of everything. They've been through hell with like unreasonable fears, and just they're not able to communicate in the same ways as my son, even though my son's autistic. So the differences were just devastating.
it's
Awful.
funny because I didn't know this about you, but I come from the same type of broken family you did, where my
Mm-hmm.
mother was abusive, my father became an alcoholic,
Mm-hmm.
and it affected me and affects me to this day. So I totally relate to what you're saying, and I also
Yeah.
can relate to what you're seeing within your family dynamic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked about this before. My first divorce was
Mm-hmm.
horrific. The second
Yeah.
one was as amicable as you could possibly make a divorce, and the difference in the
Mm-hmm.
way the kids, now mind you, my youngest is she'll be 27 this year. My oldest will be
Mm-hmm.
37. The difference
Mm-hmm.
between them is, because of the way it was handled, is night and day, and it does
It
affect
is.
relationships. Let's explore that a little bit, though, from your perspective. Like, seeing what you know now, and having, you
Mm-hmm.
said you mentioned therapy and all that. I did all that too. It didn't do
Mm-hmm.
anything for me. Um,
Yeah.
but seeing that now, and do you think it's why you do what you do? Because it is a large reason why I do what I do, is because I was a
Mm-hmm.
child of divorce, saw the effect that it had on me and then on my children. And
Yes.
I think that's a very common thing you'll see for people that speak out on these issues. Would you agree with
Mm-hmm.
that?
I would agree. I think that one of the things that us female men's rights advocates have in common is A, we don't necessarily see it as being a men's right advocate. For me, I believe that I'm being a children's rights advocate. If you want to call it men's rights, great. But I think that the statistics on children that are raised in a home without a biological father are just devastating, disgusting statistics that nobody should have to endure. And I think that fathers' rights are children's rights. But the things that we have in common are that most of us are with a man, we're married or we live together, and we see him go through these experiences, but we know that he's too weak to stand up. We know that he's afraid to put his face on the internet. We know he's been terrorized, and we feel like we need to do something about it. But for me, it isn't just about that. My TikTok has evolved into a space where I'm making connections for people between childhood trauma, the impact of a mother and her disordered behavior and her disordered child rearing has on children.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you, for instance, if you look up on TikTok and look up toxic mom or estranged mother, which estrangement is another theme here too. My husband is now an estranged parent and I'm an estranged adult child. It all just trickles down.
Mm-hmm.
It spreads like a disease, and you can find millions and millions of videos. These women know this too. They make videos about how their mom is toxic, their best friend is toxic, their mother-in-law is toxic, but they're failing to realize what the common theme is. These are women that are disordered, that are affecting people's lives. And I think a lot of that is because women are more emotional, men are more logical. It's biological, it's societal conditioning, whatever it is. And I think that when we make decisions with our emotions, we make a lot of mistakes. So I try to make those connections. Now, I started TikTok a long time ago, maybe 2 years ago, and I started making videos about, the least favorite child. Tell me you're the least favorite child without telling me. And I started telling the story about my family. But then I pivoted to father's rights and I stayed there for a long time. And that's the majority of my videos. But I got discouraged. It was like, I'm really putting out some quality content here. I mean, I'm no, video producer, but I'm going to do an experiment. And I told some of my divorced fathers that I lift up and cheer on. I told them, watch this. I am going to make a video whining about my life, and I want to see what happens. And the video sits today. I think we're almost at 8.3 million views. This was a few weeks ago that
And
this
that's
happened.
mind blowing to me that I've actually watched
Hmm.
that video several times. So I'm a few of your 8 million views. But
Yeah.
it's a fascinating video to look at. And
Hmm.
I love the way you did it. But it's interesting, like you said, the response that you're getting on that, as opposed to
Hmm.
some of your other videos.
Hmm.
And I love that you did that experiment because you're highlighting an issue that I have talked about many times myself, which is
Hmm.
those of us that speak out on issues on behalf of men, boys, men's rights. I love that you mentioned earlier that it's not really about men's rights, it's about children's rights, because most of
Hmm.
what MRAs are doing are fighting to be in the children's lives.
Yes.
And there are other issues, absolutely, that we're fighting for, but that is a big way of big viewpoint that I think is missed by a lot of people.
Hmm.
And so you did that video. It goes viral. Awesome for you, by the
Hmm.
way. Kudos.
Thanks.
I mean, the most I've ever done is 1 million, and I just did one that did that. So I was like pretty proud of that. But
Awesome.
I do this to you now.
Thank you.
But what was the reaction you got initially to that? And then has it changed at all?
Initially, I have had so many women and husbands, fathers say, yes, this is my experience. A lot of them are just like, oh my gosh, the FYP is really FYPing. A lot of people crying, like, I'm in tears watching your video. This just speaks to my soul and somebody else understands. And then a lot of husbands that are like, yeah, my mom is carrying the load for us while we're working, and her mom is nowhere to be found. And that's my husband right now. And I think that there's a lot of that, and that's mostly what the comments are, and the engagement and the duets, and this went all over the world. And I'm multilingual, so I'm able to actually respond to a lot of those comments, which has been helpful in this experience. So it's gone to Germany, Italy, France, Canada, like all over, and I try to engage with everybody and validate their concerns and their feelings. But then there are people that come in there, and I'm sorry, but a lot of it is the boomer generation that come in there and say, you know, how entitled for you to think that your mom is a babysitter or that your mom owes you babysitting. And they're missing the entire point of the video. The video was not about babysitting. My mom watched my kid plenty.
Mm-hmm.
It was about strange relationships with our parents and how they affect our children and generations to come. It is so not about babysitting. So many people didn't get that.
Let me just interrupt you for 1 second, Allie, because for anybody watching that might not have seen it, can you kind of describe the video? Because I think it's very important to give that context.
That video was whipped up in like 10 seconds. Like I am being dramatic, maybe 5 minutes, but it was just, I I have to admit, I watched this video, and that's where I got the idea from, with the same sound. And it was this girl, this young girl, she was shaving the peach fuzz off of her face. And then she was showing how her mom would come in the room and say, what are you doing? You're going to give yourself acne. And then her mother-in-law, or her boyfriend's mom, came in and said, oh, do you want another one of those, or do you need anything? And she was so supportive. And I was like, damn, that is my life. And then it came to me, and I was like, this is it. People relate to this. So I took the sound and I whipped that up together. So the beginning is me asking my mother, can you watch my son? And she's saying, I'm not your babysitter. I'm grandma. I need to go shopping today. When are you going to be back? There was always strings attached to, and I didn't put that in there. And then my mother-in-law, I asked her the same question, and this is another part people criticize about it. Like, I can fit my whole life into 3 minutes. So I told her, can you watch my son while I go to the doctor? Can you watch the baby while I go to the doctor? But I said, I'm sorry to ask. And that one sentence really triggered people, because I didn't say that to my mom. But what they didn't realize was I put that in there intentionally. I said, I'm sorry to ask, because I had been so beat down by the experiences of my mother,
Mm-hmm.
that I felt so guilty to ask for help. And there are a lot of us women that do feel like we don't ask people for help because our mothers made us feel so bad, or our fathers, or whoever. And people were very critical of that. So I asked her, and she was like, oh my gosh, yes, I will come get them from your house right now. Do you want me to watch them at your house or my house? And I'm going to buy them some pajamas. Go home and take a nap afterwards. And then I turned to the camera, and I was crying making that video. Like, people made fun of my tears, but making that, I was sobbing. I cried myself to sleep, because this is my real life. The things that I talk about in my videos are not fake. They are my life as it comes to me. And I cried, and I said, why did someone else's mom have to be my village?
It's
So,
interesting you're saying that, because the emotion does come across. And just to
mhm,
give my initial reaction to it,
mhm.
I felt that emotion. And what's interesting too is, like you say, that women have those feelings. Men have them too, I think.
Oh yeah.
I kind of, as I'm sitting here thinking about it, and remember, I've probably watched the video a dozen times at this point.
Hmm.
But it hit home with me also, because
Hmm.
as I think back, I did similar type things, right?
Hmm.
So, with my mother, I would never ask her to watch our kids back in the day.
Hmm.
There were times she'd want to, but I wouldn't let her because, well, she was a toxic person.
Yeah.
She was literally Satan on earth. I've talked about
Yeah.
that before. Uh,
My mom is too.
Conversely, in my second marriage, now the first
Hmm.
marriage, my mother-in-law hated my guts, and trust me, the
Hmm.
feeling was mutual. I got along great with my
Yeah.
father-in-law. Go figure. Second marriage, the dynamic was better. I still didn't get, I wasn't warm fuzzy with my mother-in-law. I was extremely
Hmm.
close to my father-in-law. But the difference is we didn't. A lot of times, that mother-in-law would ask to watch the kids. She wanted to help
Hmm.
out, right? She was very
Yeah.
involved with them. She was a wonderful person.
Yeah.
And but I get what you're saying, because for me to go ask my mother, ain't gonna happen. But if I were to ask my mother-in-law, I would feel a little bit guilty. I would feel like this isn't right, so to speak,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. It
Yeah.
feels wrong to do it. So I could totally relate to what you're
Hmm.
saying.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's, if nothing else, I think that might have struck the chord that drove that video, because
Hmm.
it creates that feeling. I'm sure many people have that same dynamic, same feeling.
My
Um,
husband does
there
with
you
his
go.
dad.
Right? Yeah.
His stepdad versus his bio dad. The regular bio dad was an alcoholic, abusive monster, and then his mom remarried, and he was a saint. So he knows.
And when you see that, and then you watch a video about it, it kind of hits home.
Hmm. It
That's the
hurts.
it hurts a lot, but it's also healing, I think, because you're
Hmm.
seeing, I'm not the only one feeling this way. I'm not the only
Hmm.
one dealing with this. And
Hmm.
that's an important thing, especially for dads to realize also, right? Because
Hmm.
as a dad watching that, I totally related to it, right? And it
Hmm.
speaks to something I talk about a lot, which is men and women are different, but yet we're not so different. It's
Hmm.
we have a lot of similarities.
True.
And it's interesting too to hear you talk about the reactions you got it, and like people mocking for crying. Why? I mean,
Yeah, I sobbed watch making that, and they knew how hard it hit all of the people. I mean, if you see 30,000 people in the comments, there's so many comments that TikTok as an app can't even handle it anymore. And I try to click on them, and it says comment not available. The app starts glitching. And they say all of these people that are like, I cried myself to sleep after I watched this, or I'm sobbing watching this. And like they know that it's real. People are having a visceral reaction to this video. So why they need to say things like that? I really think that it's part of the culture, though, on these apps like TikTok, is that people hide behind an icon and they have no accountability for the things that they say. I almost think that they are taking their bad day out on people. And one of the things that have been so striking about my experience on TikTok is that women like to say that men are the problem. But yet, if you go to any video, like go to a beautiful woman's video, for instance, and one that has a lot of engagement, and see who the bullies are in those comments, just completely unprovoked. Women,
I was just going to say, well, I
women.
can answer that one easily. It's women every
They
time,
are
and I've had others
bullies.
on the podcast that have talked about that. It's
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Just out of curiosity.
I think it's part of that culture, the difference, like I was saying, and it's part of why I think why divorce and custody is so difficult is that as women, we tend to make decisions with our emotions instead of logic. And I think that that spills over into so many aspects of our lives. I mean, we think that I'm feeling emotional about this video or someone's comments, and I can just word vomit
Hmm.
whatever I want because I'm entitled to that. And it hurts our children. It teaches them, when you have a parent that's an online bully, I can only imagine that those children, their first bully was their mother. It's sick.
I think, I completely agree with you, by the way. I think what the people's persona on the internet is, they're hiding behind, like you said, an icon. I call it a
Hmm.
keyboard, right? Keyboard
Yep.
Carl, keyboard Karen, whatever you want to use.
Hmm.
Sorry to all the Carl and Karens out there, but
Hmm.
um, but it is also who they are, and
It is.
it comes through. Now, when you see that, like you just mentioned, I
Hmm.
also, in some ways, I feel bad for them. Not a lot, a
I do.
smidge, smidge over within the
I do.
camera, because that is who they are in a lot of
It is.
instances. And yeah, that level of toxicity or
Mhm.
anger or sadness, for that matter, because
Mhm.
there's lots of different drivers for it,
Oh yeah.
has to go through their whole life. And if I, as I'm sure you know, when I put my videos up, I tend to attract certain people who don't particularly care for them,
Mhm.
and that's fine, because it doesn't bother me in
Mhm.
the least. I laugh at a lot of it, in fact, almost all of
Mhm.
it. But it's just interesting to me when you look at that and say, geez, if they're doing that to me, what are they doing to their kids? What are they doing to their
Yeah.
spouse and all that?
Mhm.
And I also kind of agree with you. I twisted it or turned it a little bit differently. I think this is generationally taught.
Mhm.
Um, women are I'm not trying to bash women here, but I'm going to focus on the women because men do it too, by the way. All right, but
Mhm.
we men learn from their fathers, or if the
Mhm.
father's not around, they can't learn from their fathers.
Mhm.
But women are learning from their mothers to, for lack of a better term, play a victim role for the most part,
Mhm.
and to go on the attack anytime there's something
Mhm.
that they don't like. And
Yes.
I'm generalizing. There are absolute exceptions. I'm talking to one of them, okay,
Mhm.
through that. But in general, I think it's something that's been going on. It's actually a theme I've started to approach and talk about a little bit, where
Mhm.
it started. I'm almost 60. I talk about it all the time. I am the boomer you're
Mhm.
talking about,
Yeah.
and I'm proud of it. But it started back then, right? And then it
Mhm.
not only did it happen with the feminist wave that came out of that, but the media picked up on it and started
Mhm.
teaching girls to be that way.
Mhm.
And I think it's become generational now. And it's why you see, like, and I know you get the toxic comments as well.
Oh yeah.
How do you,
I leave them.
yeah, well, like I said, I find them entertaining as hell sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes
Mhm.
one of the things that I do, and I've talked about this many times, is
Mhm.
I treat them as educational experiences. I'll go them on. Not because I'm
Yeah.
trying to change their mind, because you're not going to,
You're not.
but you're enable, I did it just the other day on Instagram with one. And this
Mhm.
went on literally, Allie, for 2 days. But
Mhm.
it was so educational for guys. And I had guys reaching out to me going, oh my God, I can't believe what I'm seeing. How,
Yeah.
how do you think we can approach that and change it, or can we change it? How does that mindset change?
I think that that's where I'm at with my account is that now my following has changed, right? It used to be mostly dads and stepmoms, divorced dads, and now I've got an entire fan base or following. Um, Most of it, 75%, is women that are sad about their mom. And I want to somehow bridge the gap. I want to, and I have been spoon feeding them, new concepts. Like, for instance, okay, if you go to my recent videos from yesterday, there's a woman who made a video and it went mega viral. And a lot of people sent me it. And she said that she was home with the baby. Her husband got home from work and he was hungry. And she said, well, the baby and I already ate. So there was no food for him, even though she didn't say that. So he decided to go get carry out. And when he came home, she was so excited that he cracked the code, she called it, because even though she said that she didn't want any food, he bought her a burrito anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And anticipating that by the time he got home with it, she would probably be hungry. And she was praising him up and down. I stitched it and I said, I wasn't mean to her. I was very respectful. I said, hey, I know this is probably not your situation, and good job for husband for doing that for you, and good job knowing your order, what you wanted. But sometimes when men do things for you that are seemingly good, it's out of trauma. He might know that if he didn't get you the burrito, you would have been upset because it's happened before because you didn't do it anyway, because a lot of us expect men to read our minds, or no means yes and yes means no. Or two, if he doesn't get you the burrito and you're hungry, you're going to eat his food.
I'm
And
chuckling
he's
because that
starving.
that was exactly what I was thinking. Was like, yep,
Yeah,
you
but it's
order
too
it because
common
you know damn
sense.
well she's going to want yours. The joke's always been the
Yeah.
French fries, right? I don't want French fries, and
hmm
then you eat
My
half of
husband
his.
does that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
my
always
husband
get a
does that.
double order, so yeah, I know. But it's fascinating because I saw that video. In fact, we talked
hmm
about it off air, but
hmm
um, everything you said hits home, right?
Yeah.
It's in some instances, speaking from the guy's perspective of that, he's
hmm
just doing it to be nice, right?
Yeah.
He's also doing it because, like you said, he wants to eat his dinner and he doesn't want to give up half of it, and that's okay. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. And
Yeah.
some of it is, like you said, it's a learned behavior. She's telling me
hmm
no, but she really means yes.
Yeah.
No offense, but you ladies don't know what you're thinking. How the hell are we ever supposed to figure it
Yeah.
out?
Exactly.
And
Except for people like me, that I am very direct and I'm very blunt, and it offends people. And I think that it's autism. I have an autistic child, and
mhm.
I'm pretty sure that I'm autistic. I've been told by doctors I need to get evaluated. But when I say something, I mean what I say, and I say what I mean. No means no, and yes means yes. And I will say exactly what's on my mind. But also, I was raised around boys. Our whole subdivision was boys. I was around boys all the time. Boys were my friends. And I don't know if maybe that changed me. Maybe it messed me up. Maybe it helped me. I don't know.
I th-
But yeah.
it's funny you say that because most of my friends through life have been women. So
hmm
I'm in touch with my feminine side, as they say.
hmm
Back when I was a competitive rower, rowing is 80% women. So
Yeah.
I was hanging around women all the time, and but it does give you a different perspective on how the
hmm
other thinks. You talked about biologically, we are different. Men are
hmm
more logical, as you put it. We go
hmm
from A to B to C to D. Women will go from
hmm
A to F, even though F isn't even on the table, back to D. And there's
hmm
nothing wrong with that. I think that's what people have lost is the realization that men have their strengths, women have their strengths. Men have their
hmm
weaknesses, women have their weaknesses. What's interesting, biological, societal, whatever way you want to put it, is our men's strengths are women's weaknesses. So and vice versa, when we come together and work together, everybody benefits. The whole is
Yeah.
greater than the sum of the two parts. We've lost
hmm
that, I think, in society. And I think you're kind of
hmm
touching on that a little bit. So you did the video, you got the reactions. I have a question for you as you were reading
hmm
those reactions, because I've
hmm
gone through this. How did it make you feel personally?
I think it made me feel not so alone, but at the same time, I was baffled because what hurt me about the video going viral, like I cried. That was my feminine side and emotional. And I wasn't crying because so many people could relate. I was crying because I tried so hard to spread an educational message that benefited children for so long. And all I had to make was some stupid video whining, and I went viral. Like, why is that? Is that really this pandering, this rage baiting to women's emotions? That's what gets views.
It
And
is.
why? We're not making anything better. And that's what I try to say in my videos. Like the burrito lady, she got so offended, and instead of an healed person response of, you know what, I should ask my husband if that's why he got me the burrito. And I posed the question to her, did you not ask for the burrito because you're afraid to burden people? Is that your trauma response? And she won't answer that. But yeah, I think that, the way that we have this men, we hate women, passport bros, all this stuff, and then men are incompetent and all this other stuff. It really, like, where do we fix it? Nobody's talking about that. And if you do, nobody wants to listen.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing that you're postulating here is why does that happen? And the answer is I
hmm
don't know either. My answer. I think a lot of it is
hmm
the algorithms that have been created
hmm
by the various social medias. We talk about TikTok, but the same thing happens on Instagram, YouTube, all of them.
hmm
All right. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. I'm on
hmm
Facebook. Not that I use it because that's for boomers, and even though I am one, I don't.
hmm
But you see that consistently across all of them. And in
hmm
my mindset, that's not an accident. It's now,
No.
is it the social media companies driving it with their algorithm? Yes, I think that is
hmm
part of it. I also think some of it is that women will express their emotions, and the social media has become their town hall.
Yeah.
So the social media companies are seeing that. Again, it kind of intertwines with the algorithm. So, all right, well, if 30,000 women are going to respond to this video, I'm going to keep pushing it, right?
Hmm.
Whereas
Yeah.
guys, on the other hand, tend not to respond. I get a lot of
Hmm.
responses on my videos from guys,
Hmm.
but it pales in comparison to like your example, right?
Yeah.
And I do think that it's an interesting thing to explore because it shows how society is, right?
Yeah.
Men are basically kind of off in the corner at this point.
Hmm.
We stay silent on our issues, and that's our fault. Let me
Hmm.
state that up front. So guys listening, this is not the women's fault that we're quiet. It's our own fault, right? Because we could speak up. I do. And yes, I
Hmm.
get a lot of shit for doing it, and I don't care.
Yeah.
But the other side of it too is women are much more vocal. Some of it is goes back to biology. You know, the thing
Hmm.
women say, I think it's 15,000 words a day. Guys are like 6, 7, whatever. It's
Hmm.
the differences between who we are, but it also speaks to how it's evolved at this point. Because when there was no social media, and I'm old enough to remember when there was no internet,
Me too.
yeah, it was a totally different scenario, right? Now it's
Hmm.
become the norm, the public, I say the town hall. It's just
Hmm.
getting exponentially worse, and I think it's creating more issues than it's solving. But,
It
uh,
is.
you know, as you're getting those responses to your videos and it's affecting you, um, how do you see yourself like taking that and then using it to educate? Because I think it's fascinating that you're trying to do that, and I applaud you for it.
Hmm.
How do you see it moving forward on that?
I think that I'm going to start drawing some parallels, right? My videos are the intersection of societal issues, men's rights, children's rights, families, therapy, estrangement, because if these women don't get it together, they're going to end up estranged. And I'm going to try to introduce some topics very carefully.
Mm-hmm.
One of the buzzwords right now is attachment or gentle parenting, especially when people are saying, well, I'm estranged from my parents and now I attachment parent or a gentle parent. You know what? Part of attachment and gentle parenting is shared parenting. And they don't want to hear it, they're not ready for it. But I think that that's probably how I'm going to segue into that is to introduce the story of what happened to my child, what I did. But women get really offended when I say that I did things differently than what they're used to hearing. For instance, on that video where I told them I don't relate to the if he wanted to, he would, weaponized incompetence. My husband didn't plan Mother's Day. I've been married twice and I don't relate to that in either marriage. They got really angry. I mean, the mobs were coming for me saying, like, you're being dismissive of women. You're going to make women want to unalive themselves. Just because I
Wow.
talk, yeah,
They
you should
actually
look. I
said
left
that
it
to
up.
you. That's
Yeah,
mind blowing to me.
I left that up. And I tried to explain to them that, look, my message, if you want to take anything from it, is that for one reason or another, which I know is trauma because I witnessed domestic violence, I was very careful to not marry anybody that wasn't good to the women in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
I married men who took their mom out every year for their birthday and Mother's Day and got them flowers, and nobody messes with my mom. And I was drawn to that as a person. And I made these parallels and it offended the hell out of them. They were like, well, some people change, some people pretend to be one person. And well, pay attention. I don't know what to tell you. I got lucky. I'm just telling you that I don't relate to you. And
Yeah,
why is that so offensive?
that's a question I want to ask you, Allie, because I want to educate
Hmm.
the guys on that mindset a little bit that are
Yeah.
watching this. Can you explain from the female perspective of why you
Hmm.
think they are that way? Can you put yourself in their shoes and say, why would you attack someone for saying what you're saying? Because to
Hmm.
me, again, logical brain here,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense. I'm even struggling as we're sitting here chatting to kind of understand why you're sharing your story. Girl power. We're all supposed to support each other, and yet
Yeah.
they are savaging you, it sounds like. I mean, to throw
Yeah.
out people are unaliving themselves, shut up. Oh my
Mhm.
God. I mind boggling.
Yeah.
Can you kind of share,
Women.
like, put yourself in their shoes and
Yeah.
help me and the listeners understand
Hmm.
why they would think that way? Because I don't get it.
Hmm. I understand personally because I've been through EMDR therapy for the abuse that I suffered as a child. And when we walk through therapy and EMDR while we're tapping, we walk through the fire, right? We talk about things, we let it out. We have to feel this immense pain to get through it. And until you feel it and you let yourself feel it, you get through that and then you get out the other side. And I think that when they're seeing this information and they haven't done that work yet, it is so triggering to them. They're walking through the fire. It's reminding them of something that they didn't get or a bad experience and they can't handle it.
Can you just share what EMDR is? Because I'm not even familiar with the term.
EMDR is a type of therapy where you heal from trauma in CPTSD. So it's usually very complex trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And you work through the memories of the abuse and the horrible things that happened. I know they do this sometimes with military too, and you tap through it.
Okay.
And it's really hard to explain. It's really weird, but you have to make yourself feel pain, especially like for men, because men tend to suppress memories or
Mm-hmm.
they forget things that are horrible and then it just comes out one day. So you're actually pushing yourself to feel bad, to feel better.
Which is the
And
exact
our,
opposite of the therapy I always did.
Mhm.
They wanted me to talk about it but not get emotional about it, so to speak. I'm not
E.
sure I'm saying it the right. It was
Ugh.
weird. And I mind you, I at least 10, 12, dozen therapists over the years that I tried different
Mhm.
things with. I It just did not work for me. But it's
Mhm.
interesting to hear you say that because I could see also from the military side, they go through horrific
Mhm.
things and
Yeah.
they have to tap those memories because the best way,
Mhm.
I always tell people the way I healed was I sat down when I was about 40 years old and said,
Mhm.
"What the f are you doing?" and
Yeah.
and confronted what I'd been through. And
Mhm.
then the next step for me was talking about it, and that's what
Mhm.
healed me. And I always
Yeah.
say I'll never be fully healed. No one can, and I'm sure you would agree
Mhm.
with that. But it's
Yeah.
just interesting to hear that. So
Mhm.
these you're thinking these women are tapping their emotions, if you will,
Yeah.
but instead of looking at it as an opportunity to heal, it almost
Mhm.
sounds like they're using it as an opportunity to continue the
Mhm.
the negativity of it. Would you say that's true?
I agree. We're in this society right now where if somebody even can, inconveniences us, no matter who they are in our life, we just cut them off without warning, without explanation. We rage on people in comment sections and word vomit. We don't take responsibility. Yes, it would be hard for that woman to say, "Did you get me that burrito because I mistreated you?" Um, or am I not asking for the burrito because somebody did something to me? It was too hard for them to look at that because it's so painful. But then they see me saying, I didn't have the same experience as you. My husband always got me or planned Mother's Day or he always remembered me. And I don't know what the weaponized incompetence feels like because both of my ex-husband and my husband are very hardworking. It's triggering to them because they're thinking about the fact that they didn't have that they went through domestic violence or they got hurt or they had to pay all the bills or whatever it
Mm-hmm.
was. And so it's like they're walking through it by watching my videos, and my videos are meant to be triggering. The whole purpose of my account, it literally says as my bio, is uncomfortable conversation. And, they're getting triggered and so triggered that they can't look at the message. It's too hard.
Yeah, I'm finding this utterly fascinating. I have to tell you because you're educating
Mm-hmm.
me, and hopefully the listeners too. Is because
Yeah.
I'm trying to put myself in that mindset because one of the things that I often deal with, I try and trigger people also. I want people to
Mm-hmm.
think. My goal is a
Mm-hmm.
little different than yours. Is my goal is to educate men to open their eyes
Mm-hmm.
because we live in our little bubbles and
Yeah.
we live in fantasy land in a lot of instances.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that, but I want to kind of get that educational message out there. And it's similar to what you're doing.
Hmm.
But I find it fascinating what you're saying because, again, it speaks to the differences in the way men and women think. And
Hmm.
if I'm being honest, I'm having trouble to relate to how that thought process goes. But it's
Hmm.
also helping me to understand why I get some of the comments from women on my posts. Now, mind
Yeah.
you, my account is designed to be a safe space for men and for men to.
Hmm.
It's my following is roughly 95% male.
Hmm.
And I've tried to get women to come in and have conversations, but they
Hmm.
almost always turn ugly for whatever
Hmm.
reason. And I'll take some of the blame for that.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to hear what you're saying because the question I have where I'm going with all this is again, do you think this is learned behavior? Is this, I hate using the term, but I'm going to use it, the victimhood mentality that has been pushed on
Hmm.
women for generations now, 3, 4, 5, 6 generations? Do you think that is
Hmm.
part of it?
I do. I think that people scream female empowerment, but when we try to empower them, they don't even know where to go with it. It's like I'm trying to tell you in my videos that you have the power to not accept, a man that doesn't treat women right. And you do not have to accept that type of behavior of mistreatment of women. And if you don't look at that and you don't be selective, you are going to end up in a bad situation. But you have the right to say no to something, and they are just so triggered by it they just can't wrap their head around it. And I get the same thing from men too. I
Mm-hmm.
have to say one of the things is like, look at how you and I met. Okay, so I've watched your account for a long time. I try not to comment too much because I don't want to be a woman in a man safe space unless I'm invited. I think that that's very important for men and women to have places to speak without intrusion. So unless I'm invited, I try to stay quiet. But I've seen tons of your videos.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day you saw a video of mine and you were like, whoa, Nelly, and
that,
you
that's a
know,
fair way of putting it because I was like,
yeah,
whoa.
it's another one of those,
Yep.
and then I was like, no, no, no. I'm, I know you don't know who I am. I'm
Right.
going to give you a chance and take a look at some of this other stuff. And I think that men have this PTSD reaction too, because they're used to this garbage that we
I'm
perpetuate on
raising
this
my
app.
hand. Guilty as charged. I freely admit it.
Yeah, but you're not used to that. You are
Right.
not used to scrolling through TikTok without it saying, I'm a stepmom. I hate my better baby mama. They make it pretty clear. But for me, I'm challenging you. I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to trigger you. So you're not expecting me to pop out and say, I got 2,900 men's rights videos. Go look at those.
And I'm so glad you did that because again, it was
Hmm.
educational for me, right? You actually achieved your purpose with
Yeah.
me, right?
Yeah.
And I'll say right here, I was wrong to do what I did, but I also
Yeah.
it was also I think fair for
Yeah.
you
Fair
know
enough.
because again, I didn't know you at the time, and
No.
what's interesting too is it kind of speaks to how the future could be if we
Hmm.
have these instances, because I think what you and I did is then
Hmm.
we had to start having a dialogue, right? You
Yeah.
messaged me and go,
Yeah.
hey, that's not what my intention is, and I went,
Yeah.
okay, fair enough,
Yeah.
or whatever I said, and then we
Hmm.
started dialoguing, and we
Hmm.
learned, we are a lot more alike than we are different.
Yeah.
Again, right?
Hmm.
And
We are.
it just shows what is possible when communication
Mhm.
happens. You know,
Yes. And that's the main point.
and I think that's also part of the problem with social media. It's a tool to communicate, but it's not being used to communicate. It's being used
It's
to
not.
divide.
Hmm.
So, as you're seeing that, so I love that I want to kind of go into how you started doing this experimenting where,
Hmm.
and I want to focus on a video you put out today. And guys, I'm going to
Hmm.
link to
Two.
her. Yeah, the two of them. I'm going to link to her
Hmm.
account in the show notes. So if you're watching this, I'm going
Hmm.
to link to Allie's TikTok down in the show notes. So
Hmm.
go check this out so you understand what we're talking about. But you did two
Hmm.
separate videos today, two
Hmm.
different perspectives. I'm not going to ruin the surprise. I'm going to let you talk about it. So can you talk about what each video was about, and then we'll get into some of the reactions.
So last night I was thinking about doing another social experiment. It was pretty late at night. I think it was like 10, 11. And I took a video of me going through door number one or door number two. And I saved the video without text on it so I could recycle it later, I believe. So, door number one, this was the women's video, was marriage, working full time, the domestic labor, so the marriage and family door. And I walk into that door and I see all of those things. I'm like, oh, no, no, no. And I walk through the childless and carefree door instead, door number two. Then I made a men's version of the video, and door number one that they were like, oh, whoa, whoa, no, was, bankruptcy, false allegations, becoming a weekend visitor to the kids, child support till they're 18, not being allowed to have needs or feelings. I listed it out, and I can rattle all this stuff off without reading anything because I'm married to it. This is
Mm-hmm.
what my husband goes through. So I just put that on there. And then door number two was passport bros slash Eastern women, because a lot of men are, they're at least saying that they want to do this or that they're doing it. I don't know if that many people really are, but I did put that on there, and neither video was something that I necessarily agree with or relate to, but I wanted to see what would happen in the differences between the engagement, the comments.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I categorize this correctly and I use the right verbiage, I be able to reach both audiences still at the same time, even though I've pivoted? And also to remind my male audience that is very defeated, that, hey, I'm still me and I still believe in what I believe in. And I'm sorry the content has looked like this, especially when I have, and real quick, I know this is a little off topic. I have a video with a military sound in the background saying, stay with me. Stay with me. And it's like a brother helping his fallen brother who is dying. And I said, for all the deleted dads that are fighting or to not delete themselves, please stay with us. So many, that video got so much engagement from men saying I give up, like men that are really like they're ready to just walk off the planet. And it broke me, and it felt like such a big responsibility to I tried to reply to everybody because I felt so broken watching that, knowing that I've scraped my husband off the floor so many times.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to remind those men that, look, I'm not pander panda here. This is not me. I'm not going to do that. I am just doing an experiment. And guys, I'm still here, right? Stay with me. And it was really unique, the way that in the men's video, most of them were cheering each other on. They were talking about their experiences. They were complaining about the things that they've been through, and justifiably so. More brotherhood in there and a lot less fighting. In the women's video, it was a lot of like negativity in the comments and bashing men and arguing with each other on each other's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, damn. And if I posted the videos about an hour apart, and at first the women's video was really taking off, and then it kind of teetered off at night, in the middle of the night. And then the men's video just took off. I woke up and it had twice as much engagement. So it was like, this was interesting. But I wanted to make sure, and I wanted to show people that, look, men are going through issues and women are going through issues. What video reaches you is what you wanted to see that day. But it doesn't mean that we should be dismissive.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've watched both videos. I thought both were excellent, by the way.
Thanks.
And I can kind of relate to what you were saying in the men's video. Although I don't really relate to the passport thing.
Yeah, I don't either.
We can kind of talk about that topic a little bit, but the passport bro thing, I don't understand it. I am looking, by the way, if anybody's watching this who can direct me to an expert on it, I would love to have a dialogue about it so that
I'm an expert.
Because I don't. I mean, and I'm jaded by a friend of mine. He was a dear friend of mine who married a girl from Russia. So he went over, brought her here. They got married. They had a child. 2 years later, she went back to Russia with the child. He did not see his daughter for, I've lost contact with him 10, 12 years. And he was utterly just destroyed by it. So I see that side of it. The other side of it is I have another friend, married a girl from the Philippines, I believe, and they have the best marriage ever. So I see both sides of it. But it's interesting that it's starting to become a movement, I think. I think it's not as big as people think it is. but it's
Hmm.
also tapping on the main issue that men have today, which is we want
Hmm.
to be in relationships. We
Yeah.
want to be married. We don't hate women. I
Hmm.
People think I hate women and I'm dead set against marriage and all that. Quite the opposite, right?
Nah.
I'm
Yeah.
also a realist though. Is
Hmm.
okay, we're going to get in relationships. You better go in with your eyes wide open
Yeah.
and realize there's a pretty good shot 50-50 you're going to lose everything and
Yeah.
make your decision based on that. But you
Hmm.
kind of talked about you've got some experience with passport. Let's go there for just a brief moment. Not that we intended to, but if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so kind of talk about what
Um,
your experiences with that.
I don't want to be too specific and dox anybody in my life, but I have
Totally
three family
understandable.
members.
Okay.
I have three family members, and what I'm going to say, and men, I need you to really hear me on this, okay? When you are in the US and you meet somebody that's here on a student visa, do not give her a fiance visa. Do not do it. It is the most risky thing that you will ever do. Here's the thing is that a lot of these women, they're here because they don't want to be in their home country. They're mad at their family, whatever the reason is. And when they run out of student visa extensions, the only way that they can stay in the United States is a fiance visa. There's no amount of money that customs or whatever immigration is going to take. So it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter how much money their family has. If you take a passport woman who is not a citizen here, she will learn in the United States what she can get away with. And a lot of these women that are passport wives, they have been taught to do what they're going to do. The Western man, that works hard and all of that, that's what they want. When you start nearing the 5 year mark, that is when they can apply for permanent citizenship status. And if you try to leave them before then, or even if you wait, I mean, there's no good situation. They could, if you try to leave because you realize you're getting used and they haven't gotten their citizenship yet, they'll do what was done to my husband. They will run your ass into the ground.
Wow.
And if you get to the 5 year mark and they get what they want, there's a chance that they're going to take everything too. And this is serious because if you marry somebody or you're with somebody that their citizenship isn't a Hague Convention state or a Hague Convention country, you got to look that up too. And I don't want to get too much into it,
Mm-hmm.
but you got to really protect yourself if you're going to do something like that. I
Well,
don't agree with the passport movement.
yeah, it's that's what happened to my friend. Is like I said,
Yeah.
his wife took their daughter back to Russia. State
Hmm.
Department was helpless. I mean, he tried.
Yeah. They don't
He
care.
spent every penny he had
Yep.
trying to
Yep.
get some, and
Yeah.
they couldn't do anything. They're like, our hands are tied. There's nothing we can do,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
that's the danger of it. And like I said, I do see the positive side too. I'm trying to be
Yeah.
somewhat fair, but I also understand
Yeah.
what you're saying. Is again, it speaks to what I like to do. Is guys,
Hmm.
understand this. Look at the pros. Look at the
Hmm.
cons, because the cons that you're talking about, Allie, are pretty damn serious
Hmm.
cons there. And
Yes.
if you're going to do something like that's your choice, and I support that.
Yeah.
But do it with your eyes wide open and from an
Yeah.
educated perspective, because
Hmm.
I've seen both sides of it, and
Hmm.
if it's not something I would do.
No.
And I admit it's because of what happened to my friend. His name was Jeff.
Hmm.
Jeff, if you're watching, reach out to me, by the way, because I've totally lost track of him. I can't find him anywhere. He's off social
Aw.
media. I'm actually genuinely concerned that something happened to him because he was that desperate, and it's been 10
Yeah.
years.
That's
Um,
how dangerous it
it
is.
is, but it's just interesting to hear you say that. Sorry we sidetracked on that, but I wanted to take advantage of that since we had the
Yeah.
opportunity. But
I have more.
go back to your video. So you're getting a lot of negative reaction on the female one, which honestly, as a male, as a boomer male, if I may,
Yeah.
um, I don't want to say it was positive, but it kind of came across that way to me. Like it was like, yeah, this is how it is, right?
Hmm.
It's
It is.
reality. Do you think that's what's triggering the response? Is they're having to face their reality?
Most of the arguing was arguing about what door number three would be because I purposely
Yeah.
didn't label the third door in the shot because I do things like that. It's like Taylor Swift, how she lives like goose eggs in her album covers and stuff. I do that in my video. Every video, there's things in that video that were done on purpose. And in that video, I left the third door in the shop blank because I wanted them to say what their third door was, and I didn't tell them.
Hmm.
I do that in so many videos. But anyway, they were arguing over what it should be. Somebody's saying, well, I'm 60 and childless, but I'm married. And somebody, them saying, I'm going to be alone forever. Or wait, no, them saying like, I'll never be alone because I've got my friends. And then people are like, you've never worked in a nursing home. How many people are alone here? Just like these stupid things that they argue about. It's this need to be right all the time. It's like, damn, you can't evolve at all.
I'm chuckling because I'm sorry, I'm going to be a sexist pig if I may, but you women
Ugh, I'm fine.
have to be right. It's
Have to be.
amazing to me. So, like
Yeah.
one of the themes I always talk about is men are walking away. They don't want to be
Yep.
married anymore. They're not going to date.
Hmm.
And I have
Yeah.
so many women that they just come at me and go, "No, we wanted that first. We're the ones walking away." And I'm like, "Okay, because guess what? Either way, men come out ahead. You want to win it, because in the end, we're the ones winning." It's interesting, that
Yeah.
mindset. And again, I struggle to understand it, because as a guy, I'm like, okay, so if you walk away or we walk away, either way, we come out ahead. What's the
Yeah.
negative to that? But yet they have to win, that it's us walking away. Why do you think that
Yeah.
is? I'm just curious.
I think that, they're used to men giving in. I think that if I could give it a label, it'd be, you know what? My husband is going to say that he's wrong because he doesn't want to talk about it anymore.
He doesn't want to
He's
hear
got
it
more shit
anymore.
to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't want to hear it anymore. If I just say I'm wrong, can I be done now and go away? Like, if I just eat the broccoli, Mom, will you let me get up from the dinner table?
I do it. It's
I
all right.
know.
I get your point. Enough's enough. I'm done.
Yeah.
You
Like,
win.
I'm wrong. Great. Bye. I know you could change your podcast little label for like Women's Day or something. It could be men need to be heard, women need to be right.
You know what? I'm going to steal that at some point, because that is great. Um,
Marketing genius.
so you're talking about the third door, and I did pick up on it, because I was
Yeah.
very well done, by the way.
Thank you.
I should hire you to be my producer on my videos.
I'd
Um,
love that.
so let's talk a little bit about the two different third doors. So on the guy's side, what are they saying? What do you think the consensus is on the third door, so to speak?
I haven't had a lot of time to go through the comments today like I would have liked to, and it was
Hmm.
more often talked about in the women's video than it was the men's. But in the women's video and the men's video, there were people talking about having a traditional wife, which is funny because I get made fun of for being a traditional wife and gender role, stuff.
Hmm.
And that was the most common thing was, get married, stay home with your kids, don't do the full-time job part of door number one. And then men saying, still married, I'm married to an American woman. Thank God I got a decent one. I'm door number three.
Interesting.
So,
So on the
mhm.
women's side, what are they saying? Like, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but is there like a
Yeah.
consensus on door number three? I feel like I'm watching Let's
Um,
Make a Deal here.
yeah, being in a relationship with another woman and giving up on men is door number three. Door number three is getting married but not having children. That's part of door number
Okay.
three. So that was most of it.
It's
And
I just find it interesting to see the differences between it.
mhm.
And you brought up a subject I'd like to go into now, because I've got one here: traditional wives, or
Yeah,
trad wives. That's the new
yeah,
trending one.
it is.
I'm so sorry, by the way, for what you're going through. Because
Yeah,
it's not the
I know.
guys attacking
Oh,
you.
no,
Oh
it's
my
not.
God.
The women, I don't get bullied by men. I've had a couple because, you know how an iPhone camera, how TikTok wants you to shoot natively in their app.
Yep.
Well, if I use the camera, look, this is not a photography tool. If you're shooting, and I think a lot of people don't realize this, if you're using a camera, it isn't the way that you look in real life if it's on your cell phone.
Right.
So for some reason, my nose translates and my forehead looks huge in some of my videos. But I don't give a shit. I'm 42 years old, so I
Right.
just post it anyway. And I do that, on purpose. I want people to see that I'm a real person and I don't care if I look bad in this video. I'm just going to do it. So I get comments like that and I do get made fun of. But the biggest thing that I get is being made fun of for being a traditional wife. It is like, ugh, it's gross. That's why our
Why?
country's falling apart. Why?
Why? I don't get it.
Yeah,
All right, Allie. I'm sitting here
yeah.
going, the whole argument of feminism back in the 70s is for women to have choice,
Jobs. Yep.
whether they want a career or stay at
Hmm.
home. Back then, it was you decide what you want to do, girl, and we're going to
Yep.
all get behind you and support you. That's
Yeah.
how it was in the 70s, and I can get behind that kind of feminism all day long. No problem with it.
Yeah.
There
Well,
there were things that needed to be changed. Now,
mhm,
the working mother, career mother, whatever term you want to use, versus, I
mhm.
guess, tradition. I'd never heard of trad wives till a couple of months ago. I'm like, what the hell is this?
I know.
Um, it is savage. I mean,
Hmm.
what if you can put yourself, because you have a career also, can you put yourself
Hmm.
in that position and say, why would they do that? What is the objective or benefit of that? I don't get it.
I think that it's something that they weren't offered. And I think that
Hmm.
unfortunately, I'm going to I have about 10 more minutes before I have to
Okay.
pick up my son, but I want to touch on this that I think that people, they didn't have the opportunity. Feminism, I'm sorry, and I'm going to say this loud and proud with my full chest. Modern feminism ruined the American family. And I do not care what anybody says. You can come at me all you want. We wanted to work. Guess what? Now we have to work. Now it takes two incomes to raise a family or you're poor.
If I may interrupt,
And
listen to what she just said. You want it to work. Now it's you
yes,
have to work. That is a key point you just made
yes,
right there.
yes, you have to have a wife that will go to the office. And I'm sorry, I think women have more affairs than men because guess what? You're both off working. She's with all these people all day that give her validation. Hardly ever sees you. She up and leaves because at work she's getting validation just like men do.
Hmm.
But I don't think that women were meant to be in these workforces. I was in IT management for a long time and it was a men's arena. I'm sorry, but we wanted this. Now we got it. Now we have to hand our newborns to strangers for thousands of dollars a month to raise for us. Now we are not able to provide the loving home for our husband and ourselves and our kids. We are ruining our families. We ruined it. We blew it. And
And
now I'm going to tell you, when World War III starts, if it does, there will be no more feminism, and all these women are going to have to learn the value of men.
you, first of all, I was in IT management. So again,
Oh, cool.
we're, it's like you're my sister from another
Yeah,
mother here.
I know.
Um, by the way, I agree with what you're saying, and I would say this: I couch it as a parent being home. I don't care if mom or dad goes to work or mom and
Yeah,
dad is
I
home.
don't
It
either.
doesn't matter to me.
Whoever.
It
Yep.
has changed society, not for the better.
Mhm.
And,
Not
and
at
I
all.
love that you phrased it as have to work because that's where we're at right now. You've got
Hmm.
to have two incomes,
Yep.
and some of that is that we've become a commercialized society. We're trying to outdo one another. I've got people laugh at
Hmm.
me because my house is about 900 square feet. And I can't
Hmm.
tell you how many people think I'm poor because I have this small little
Why?
house. Oh, all the time I hear it. Where I live in Wilmington, North Carolina, right?
Yeah.
I got three major beaches within 10 minutes of me with
Amazing.
multi-million dollar houses on them. And here I
Hmm.
sit in my little, tiny little house, and I'm
Yeah.
happier than ever. I don't have a
Yeah.
huge mortgage, and all that.
Yeah.
I drive a 14-year-old van, mom mobile,
Yeah.
all right? Um, and I enjoy life. But because I don't chase, what these there's people I could go
Hmm.
literally walk down the street, turn a corner, turn another corner, and million-dollar
Hmm.
houses are right there, you know.
Yeah.
To what end? But it's interesting because those families now have both people have to work. They're
Hmm.
living paycheck to paycheck. The kids are
Yeah.
dumped in daycare or school. So they're
Yeah.
not seeing the parents because the parents are now working
Hmm.
68-hour weeks,
Hmm.
especially in IT management, as you know. It's
Yeah.
just interesting to see all that because, you talk about World War III,
Hmm.
Civil War, you'll hear about that too. God
Hmm.
help us if it ever happens. But I've also said and postulated, and I don't blame feminism specifically. I just think the change
Hmm.
in society is the way I put it, is what's going to
Yeah.
trigger it because
Yeah.
it creates that divisiveness, that polarity between everything. right? I'm not
Does.
talking just political, I'm talking societal, gender,
Mm-hmm.
all of that stuff. All right,
Mm-hmm.
Allie, I know you only have a few minutes, so let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
I know what you've talked about your goals and all that. How do you
Mm-hmm.
see the future, though? Let's say in the next 5 to 10 years, do you think things can change? And how do we kind of
Mm-hmm.
break that divide that we're talking about? How do we get back, if you will, to where we once belonged, to quote the Beatles?
I think I think that it needs to be that as consumers, right? I think that we don't realize if you're on TikTok, if you're using something and you're getting a product for free, you are the product.
Exactly.
And you are the product on TikTok if you're not a creator, and even if you are in some ways. We as a society and people that know better need to start engaging with videos that have these common sense narratives where we're trying to fix things. If we don't, and we keep letting this rage baiting be the norm and be the regular, and we don't learn to have these conversations, it's going to keep going on like this. We need to, change it ourselves, like how we vote with our wallets.
Hmm.
We vote with our views, we vote with our comments, our likes, our shares. But I think that another message here, too, that I wanted to say that I think that this could change the narrative. And I want to say this to your audience. There are a lot of women like I am, like we are, women that are MREs. And I'm going to tell you right now, they're not on TikTok.
No,
They're
they're
not
not.
TikTok stars. No, most of them are not.
No.
They are too busy. They are making homemade food. They are taking care of their kids. They don't want their face on the internet. I'm telling you, there are a lot more women like me, but most of them don't do what I'm doing. And I'm telling you, you don't need to get a passport. You need to get a job where you're at the workplace. This Rona stuff and people working remotely has killed a lot of that too, because I think that, we spend a lot of time at work. And when you work at a job, you tend to meet people that are a lot like you. You get to know them from afar, or maybe they work in another building, and you get to pick up on their habits if they really are a good person, what their character is like. And with this remote work, we have taken that away, and dating isn't the same anymore. You don't get to know someone the same way.
Right.
I would say if your job lets you go back to work and you are exposed to a lot of people, it's worth it. You need to do it. And if you're looking for someone, pick somebody that doesn't do what I do, and you have a lot better shot.
I love what you were saying there, and I agree with
Hmm.
you 100%. Right? It's
Yeah.
get off the electronics and go meet people,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
and,
Go get out
and
there.
you'll find that whether it's dating or not, just in general,
Hmm.
you'll find your
Yep.
life is better. I think. Um,
It is.
all right, we have a couple of minutes left, Allie. So I want you to be able to share how people can reach you because I follow you now religiously. I haven't
Yeah.
watched all your videos yet. I have been
There's a
ciphering
lot.
through them. There is a lot of, and I'm
A
trying
lot.
not to like bomb you, but
That's
because
fine. Go
you
ahead.
start liking them all. Next thing you know, you got 5,000. Literally, I had somebody do this today. They must have watched every single video I've ever done, and I'm like, oh my god! And we got to scroll through them.
Yeah.
But how can
I don't
they?
care.
How can they follow you?
I honestly, the only platform that I am on that I do this type of work is just TikTok at Anonymous Alley 198. And there I use that for everything. And I'm going to tell you why that's the only platform, because of the short form content and because it's something new for me to do this online.
Hmm.
Before this, I spent most of my time lobbying for shared parenting bills in my state, Michigan. I helped lobby for the one that we tried to get passed in 2016, as well as the one in 2019. I write letters, I call government officials and try to get these things to be normalized. I call judges. So that's what I do in regards to this, and I've been doing for many years. So my work is really not something that's on social media. So just my TikTok, really.
All right. And I will put links to it down in the show notes. Allie, I want to say thank you to you for coming on
Yeah.
and
Thanks for having me.
thank you for educating me. And I'm going to have you back on down the road because
Yeah,
I am
anytime.
fascinated by your perspective and getting that female perspective on some of these things because it helps guys
Yeah.
understand you. And I mean, I
Yeah.
jokingly say you have no clue what you're talking about. How the hell are we supposed to know? But it does help to get that different perspective and learn from it. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Bye,
All right.
everyone.
So, hey, everybody. I really do appreciate you coming on and watching the show with Allie and me. Um, our goal with this show is to educate everyone and really to, as we kind of talked about during the show, facilitate communication between people, because the more we communicate, the more we learn from each other, the more we get each other's perspectives, the better off we'll be. So if you liked the show, if you enjoyed it, give me a like, give me a follow, and make sure you subscribe to the channel, whether you're watching on Spotify or on YouTube, and don't miss out on other shows. And one final thing before I go, we got merch. So brand new mugs are up. I've got over here my coffee mugs. Go check out the link. The reason I'm promoting it is part of the proceeds for any sales of the merchandise is donated to the Taylor House, which is one of the only 2 domestic violence shelters for men in the United States. I had Randy from there on a little over a month or so ago. And so your purchase, part of that will be donated to help male victims of domestic violence. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on Men Need to Be Heard.